Good evening. Welcome to the Livonia Public Schools Board of Education regular meeting of November 28th, 2022. Mrs. Bradford, would you please take the roll?
Mrs. Acosta.
Here.
Mrs. Bonifield.
Here.
Mr. Centers.
Here.
Mrs. Jarvis.
Here.
Mr. Johnson.
Here.
Mrs. Bradford is here. President Burton.
Here, and we have a quorum. Mr. Johnson, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
My pleasure. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we begin the wide variety of business that we have before us this evening, we do have some sad news to share with our community. Our colleague and dear friend Tammy Bonifield lost her husband following a brief but very intense battle with cancer in the last couple of weeks. I would like to take a moment of silence in remembering our dear friend and colleague Brad Bonifield. Brad was very active in supporting the students of Livonia Public Schools. He was very active as a scout leader. He was active as a member of the Rotary group in Livonia, and very much an individual who cared deeply about his family and gave back to this community a great deal. We mourn with our dear friend Tammy, and we would like to ask for a moment of silence on behalf of Brad and the family. Thank you, and I would ask that you would continue to keep the Bonifield family in your prayers. On a much lighter note, we have many things to celebrate this evening. Let me see here. If you would like to follow along with our agenda this evening, and there are many things, like I said, that we are going to be celebrating. If you're here in attendance this evening, you can find a copy of our agendas just outside the door to my left on the table. If you would like to participate in audience communications a bit later in the evening, when it's the appropriate time, you can also find blue slips that you can fill out in order to participate in audience communications, should you so desire. If you are home and you'd like to follow along with a copy of our agenda, you can find that on our website, and that is at livoniapublicschools.org. If you hover over the Board tab, you can drop down to Board Meeting Information, and there you can find a copy of our agenda for the evening. You can also find there copies of our previous meetings. Tonight's meeting is what we refer to as a regular meeting or a general meeting. Some folks call it a voting meeting. And by that we mean the items that are coming before the board to vote have been discussed at typically at least 2 other meetings, sometimes more than that. So we really have gone into great detail at prior meetings on these items. If you'd like all the nitty-gritty details, I do suggest that you either attend or tune in online or go back on the website and you can look at previous Committee of the Whole meetings. The Committee of the Whole meetings, or COW meetings, are where you will find great detail upon all the items that the board will be voting on. There will be several items this evening that we're voting on that have dollars attached to them, and please don't think that we take those lightly and just ask 1 or 2 questions, but rather it is because we have asked a half an hour's worth of questions on these items at previous meetings. Let's see here. We will be taking a break. Let me see here. After item 3C in this evening's agenda, which is the district update from the superintendent. We have several folks to celebrate this evening, and when we do so, we take a brief break right after that district update from the superintendent so that those who are in attendance can congratulate our honorees of the evening. So that will be about a 5 to 10 minute break after item 3C. Livonia takes great pride in what we call our communities with character. We teach character traits to our children, starting all the way from kindergarten through 12th grade, or on up through 26. The very top of that list is respect. And you have a commitment from this Board of Education that we will treat one another and everyone who comes before this Board of Education with respect. We don't always have to agree on everything, and frankly, it's healthy if sometimes we don't, as long as we handle it respectfully with one another. We also would ask that anyone who is going to participate in this evening's meeting, please do the same. We are very, very proud of Livonia Public Schools in our community, that we maintain that on a very consistent basis. And we find that is the very best way to teach our children, is by that example. We're going to jump into the rest of our meeting at this time. We are on to item 3, communications. And 3A is the 2022-2023 Educators and Support Staff of the Year. May I have a motion, please?
President Burton,
Mr. Johnson.
move that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District adopt the attached resolutions for the 2022-2023 Educators and Support Staff of the Year.
Support.
We have a motion by Mr. Johnson, supported by Mrs. Bradford. And I will turn it over to Mrs. Jenkins, who will share all kinds of exciting things about these folks with us.
Oh, yes, thank you. Good evening, President Burton, members of the board, and Superintendent Oquist. It's a very special night in LPS, one of my favorite nights of the school year. It's my pleasure tonight to present the Livonia Public Schools Educators and Support Staff of the Year for the 2022-23 school year. This 40-year tradition in Livonia Public Schools is one that holds even more meaning as we reflect on how our staff members, every single staff member, stepped up in his or her own way to meet the many challenges presented nearly 3 years ago with the onset of the pandemic. Over this time, we have seen our staff go above and beyond for our students, our families, and for each other, as the way we do school changed in so many ways. Without recapping all of those challenging times, please let's not recap that. Suffice to say that LPS got through it as a team by coming together like never before to ensure that our more than 13,000 students and their families had what they needed to continue on their educational journey through LPS. While we would love to personally recognize all of our staff, I am proud and honored to continue this long-standing tradition of recognizing our educators and support staff of the year with you tonight. We welcome all of our guests this evening, including our honorees who are seated behind me, their families and colleagues, and I see quite the fan clubs assembled over in the peanut gallery over to my right. Thank you all for being here tonight. We also have some former educators of the year and support staff of the year. I think Mr. Mazzella was going to join us. If I could please ask those former honorees to stand to be recognized. We thank you also for being with us tonight. Before we get into introductions, let me briefly describe the program and how we got here to this point this evening. Back in the spring, we called for nominations from our parents, students, and staff. As usual, the nominations came pouring in. Once we had our nominations, a district committee read the packets and met to discuss and decide who would be recognized this year. In the end, we named 1 elementary educator of the year, 2 secondary educators of the year, and 1 support staff of the year. These honorees join a long list dating back to the beginning of the original Teachers of the Year program in 1983, and their names will be inscribed on the perpetual plaques that here at Central Office. Without further ado, allow me to introduce you to this year's honorees. As I call your name, please stand, and then you can be seated. I'll call you up one by one individually. Our elementary educator of the year is Elizabeth Wright. Our secondary educator of the year is Angela Allen. Our secondary educator of the year is Marilee Olson. And our support staff person of the year, representing the entire school district, is April Adams. Thank you, ladies. As I say each year, there is a certain level of celebrity that goes along with this distinction. And yes, I serve as their agent for the rest of the school year. Our honorees are recognized on the district's electronic media and the district's dialogue newsletter. They're also recognized at the Livonia Chamber of Commerce Annual Leadership and Awards Ceremony and at the Livonia PTSA Council's annual Founders Day event. Each honoree also receives special recognition tributes from our county and state elected officials. Our wonderful county commissioners dropped off some tributes very last minute, and on a short holiday week, they came through for us late Tuesday afternoon, so that was awesome. And each is personalized and signed by County Commissioners David Knizek, Terry Marecki, and Glenn Anderson. Coming soon is a tribute also from our state elected officials, Governor Whitmer, State Senator Dana Pohanke, State Representatives Lori Pohutsky, and Kevin Coleman. So I'll distribute those county commission tributes at this time. These are wonderful. They really said a lot about each honoree, too. I won't take the time to read all the way through them, so. I'm so excited also to present a few gifts for each honoree, including this beautiful personalized golden apple. And every year I have to take this apple out of the box because it's just truly remarkable. I love these. So we can show the fan club. It's very heavy. Ooh, ah. And each is inscribed with the title of their recognition and their name and the school year. Okay? So I'll distribute those at this time. Notice I seated the honorees strategically, so I
Good
don't have to.
idea.
We also have a gift bag, which is filled with gift cards to restaurants and retailers, along with Livonia Rec Center and Livonia Golf Course golf passes, as well, of course, as some LPS swag. So I will distribute these cute little bags at this time.
Were those donated, Mrs. Jenkins?
Yes, yep. We would like to thank the following for contributing to these gift bags. Livonia Parks and Recreation, of course, Plant Moran Cressa, Foresight Design, Interior Environments, French Associates, Clark Construction Group, and Integrated Design Solutions. They donated gift cards, each of those companies. Please enjoy these gifts. Do not give them away as holiday gifts. These are for you to treat yourselves for all of your hard work. Now I'd like to tell you about each of our honorees. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. We'll start with Mrs. Elizabeth Wright. I'll have you come up and join me while I brag about you for a few minutes. And also I'd like to invite Board Trustee Liz Jarvis to join us at the podium to read a special resolution that we've prepared in your honor.
Are you an Elizabeth or?
I am a Beth.
Oh, one of those.
I know, I feel you. My mom's over there, we can just lie.
Whereas the trustees of the Board of Education are desirous of recognizing and promoting excellence in education in this school district. And whereas Elizabeth Wright, a fourth grade teacher at Grant Elementary School and a 6-year employee of Livonia Public Schools, has distinguished herself by being named Elementary Educator of the Year for 2022-23 by a district-wide committee. And whereas in achieving that recognition, it is evident that she is an exceptional educator, going far beyond the expected range of her duties to meet the needs of students, colleagues, parents, and others. And whereas Elizabeth has shown a deep dedication to educating her students through a lens of relationship building and skillfully meeting her students' academic, social, and emotional needs while partnering with her students' families along the journey. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the trustees of the Board of Education do hereby commend and congratulate Elizabeth Wright for being named the Elementary Educator of the Year for 2022-23, and for the dedication and loyal service that she's rendered to Livonia Public Schools, her students, and the community. Congratulations.
There's a copy for you. You're welcome. But wait, there's more. As stated in the resolution, Beth Wright is a 6-year teacher in Livonia Public Schools. She currently teaches 4th grade at Grant Elementary. Beth is joined tonight by her husband, Brandon, and their 2 children, Landon and Lauren. Thanks for being here. At Grant, Beth serves on the school improvement team. She is also Grant's webmaster, and she's involved in developing integrated modules with a team of her colleagues. Mrs. Wright believes that relationships are the foundation to learning. This is a theme that you will hear all evening. Trusting relationships between her students and herself, as well as between students and their peers. She creates a classroom environment in which her students feel comfortable sharing, learning, and growing with one another as a classroom community. She loves to watch her students set goals for themselves, work hard to achieve those goals, and then share in the celebration together, as sometimes they surprise themselves when they've met or exceeded their goals. Conversely, watching her students approach disappointment with grit and determination if they do not meet their goals is also a highlight for Mrs. Wright. Beth is a champion for math skills. Now, being a student who did not particularly enjoy the subject of math, I loved reading. I can say that it's pretty remarkable that one of Beth's points of pride is that her students do not leave the 4th grade disliking math. Her approach to delivering the math curriculum is one of individualized support while working with students in small groups. All students are working on the same standard, but not all students are doing the same work. There are different levels of support depending on the student. She is kind of known for her awesome math instruction by her former students. They always mention how they're doing in math when they see her after they've moved on to upper elementary. She also has a special knack for motivating her students, whether that's by having them brainstorm words of encouragement and displaying those words around the classroom, or recognizing a student of the week each week of the school year. Her efforts have not gone unnoticed. Mrs. Wright received 2 nominations for this award, both from parents of students who were in her class last year. In their nominations, they both highlighted that Mrs. Wright really gets to know each student, and she takes what she learns about each student and tailors their instruction accordingly. She will pair students who learn in similar ways so that they can learn together. One parent said of Mrs. Wright, quote, "She takes the time to know each student and how they learn. Her fun, positive personality encourages her students to put forth the effort to achieve their personal best." She is a teacher who is just really in tune with her students' learning styles, their needs, and what they need from her to be successful. The parents who nominated Mrs. Wright said they appreciate her constant communication with them, whether it was the daily updates using the nifty Class Dojo app or email updates. They always felt that they knew what was happening with their students each day. One parent summed up her nomination of Mrs. Wright by writing, "She is the most phenomenal teacher that I have ever met." She has been a blessing. Grant Elementary Principal Sherry Mazzoni, who has joined us here this evening, thanks for being here, said, "Beth is a teacher who is a true natural educator, who gets all kids, no matter their walk of life." Mrs. Mazzoni goes on to say that Beth is a team player at Grant Elementary, noting that she embraces all school initiatives, is adaptable, flexible, and more importantly, a floor sweeper. She sees a need and fills it immediately without question or hesitation, because that's just who she is. Congratulations, Beth. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mrs. Wright for a few words.
Oh, I came prepared.
Okay.
I feel like I'm not gonna deliver.
Oh, you'll be fine. Come right up here.
Thank you. Oh my gosh. Well,
Congratulations.
thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you everybody for coming out. Thank you for giving me this incredible honor. I appreciate it. I know the rest of us appreciate it more than you would ever know. I'm Beth Wright. I graduated with my degree in elementary from Grand Valley State University. I got my master's in reading from U of M. I saw the U of M sticker over there, so go blue. Sorry, Buckeyes. I'm in my 15th year as an educator and have been at Grant teaching 4th grade for the last 6. It's such an honor to accept this award, and I couldn't do what I do without the support of the entire LPS community. First, I want to thank the families that entrust their children to us each day. They are the ones that make my work worth it. Our families support our goals, check for understanding, and make sure each day of learning is the best it can be. So thank you so much for gifting me these days with your kids. I also want to make sure I thank the LPS leadership, especially the board, the cabinet members, principals, and literacy coaches. I was a Livonia virtual teacher, and I learned so much during that year. Bridges were forged between buildings to ensure that the very best instruction was delivered to our students. Due to the community built by our literacy coaches, I had access to my fellow grade mates from across the district. I was able to hone my instruction with the insight from teachers from across the board. I am so grateful for them in that year of growth. Additionally, I am so blessed to work at Grant Elementary, where my colleagues give their each every day. I teach 4th grade, which means I have the important final year as a Gator, but there's also a secret to teaching the final year. Being a 4th grade teacher means I have access to all the other grades. Every year I ask my students, what is the one thing you hope I do that another teacher has done in the past? And with that little nugget of information, I'm able to sink them in and bribe them in, and people think I'm phenomenal, but I'm really just doing what other people have done for years. So that's my secret. Finally, I want to thank my family. They've been patient as I stayed up late to clean up slides for instruction, or forgiving me when my attention has been split from what they're doing to something that needs to be done. I'm so grateful for those that have helped me juggle pickups and handle dinner so that way I can attend committee meetings and get my work done. From the bottom of my heart, thank you for this recognition. LPS has given me the opportunity to grow as a human and an educator. I love being a teacher because I get to laugh, I have fun every day, and I learn something new. This award has been the icing on the cake. I didn't even need it. So thank you so much for recognizing me and what I do.
You did great, Beth.
And also, before you go on, if family members would like to take photographs, please do feel free to move to, wherever you need to in the room to get a better angle. So you're not taking
Absolutely.
a photograph of the back of your honoree.
Okay. Next, I would like to invite Angela Allen to join me at the podium. And if I could please ask Board Trustee Dan Centers to join us also to read the resolution we have prepared for Mrs. Allen.
Whereas the trustees of the Board of Education are desirous of recognizing and promoting excellence in education in this school district, and whereas Angela Allen, a science teacher at Frost Middle School and a 24-year employee of Livonia Public Schools, has distinguished herself by being named Secondary Educator of the Year for the 2022-2023 school year by a district-wide committee. And whereas in achieving that recognition, it is evident that she is an exceptional educator, going far beyond the expected range of her duties to meet the needs of students, colleagues, parents, and others. And whereas Angela has shown a deep dedication to educating her students in the middle school alternative classrooms for the academically talented, MACAT program, by providing a challenging academic environment that also serves as a safe space for her students to be inquisitive, creative, and community-minded. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the trustees of the Board of Education do hereby commend and congratulate Angela Allen for being named Secondary Educator of the Year for 2022-2023 and for the dedication and loyal service she has rendered to Livonia Public Schools, her students, and the community.
Like musical podium here. Happy for you. You're welcome. Okay, as stated in the resolution, Angela Allen is a 24-year veteran teacher in Livonia Public Schools, and she currently teaches science in the MACAT program at Frost Middle School. Angie joins us tonight with her husband Marty, and she is the mom of Zane, who is a Stevenson High School graduate and is currently enrolled in the U.S. Air Force Academy, and daughter Kari, who is a junior at Stevenson High School. Marty and Kari are here. Thank you for being here, guys. This is Angie's 5th year at Frost Middle School, where she has served on the assessment committee for designing assessments with the district's online science curriculum called Amplify Science. She has also worked to implement more hands-on and critical thinking activities, as well as lab experiences for middle school learners. Prior to the MACAT program, Mrs. Allen taught for 19 years at Franklin High School, where she taught a variety of science classes. I was very impressed by this. She taught advanced biology, AP biology, IB, environmental systems and societies, as well as chemistry and earth science during her tenure at Franklin. Mrs. Allen has expanded science instruction beyond the classroom walls over the years by taking her students on science-related field trips. A memorable experience was shared when she took her class to visit the U.S. Ecology Hazardous Waste Facility to see how chemistry is used in an industry that tracks and treats hazardous waste materials. She has also encouraged her students to become involved in community organizations such as Friends of the Rouge. Her students participated in the collection and analysis of riverbed soil invertebrates to help determine the health of the river. How cool is that? And it's not always off-campus experiences that bring deeper understanding for her students. Mrs. Allen encourages her Frost Falcons to participate in the school's environmental club. Together, her students organized a school-wide lunch compost program. They have supported Frost Outdoor Classroom by working to remove the invasive plant species from the Frost Forest. They have raised funds to bring in special science speakers and have even raised funds to adopt a lab that is affiliated with Wayne State University. Her students also participate every year in a blanket making project for the Samaritas Family Shelter in Wayne. Mrs. Allen's involvement in LPS also extends to coaching track and cross country at Frost, and also coaching boys and girls swimming at Franklin, in addition to many other endeavors, such as heading up the National Honor Society at Frost. I have only described all that I have only briefly described all that she does in our schools and our community. And then switching gears to Angie as the teacher. Angie knew she wanted to be a teacher just like her second grade teacher, Mrs. Sanders, and her fourth grade teacher, Mrs. Bovey. Her teaching philosophy is based on simple guiding principles. We have a brief bullet point list here. All students want to experience success. Meet students where they are. Care for students and make them feel safe. Students are social. Give them the opportunity to build positive relationships in class. Differentiate to accommodate different learning styles. Students are always growing in mind, body, and spirit. Give them space to grow at their own pace. They are not robots. Keep instilling a growth mindset. It may be her simple approach to teaching. It may be her kindness and openness while she gets to know her students through the process of building a classroom community, or it may be all of the above. According to a former student, it is all of the above. This student wrote to Mrs. Allen, quote, "I'm writing to say thank you, a concept that is cheesy, but I hope I can capture how thankful I am for having you in my life." She goes on to say, thanks for helping her with her shoelaces that were way too long, and the motherly manner in which Mrs. Allen took care of her. She is quoted as saying, "It wasn't a big thing, but to me it was. You've done so much for me. You've helped me, supported me, and guided me." This student went on to describe the support that Mrs. Allen showed her and provided to her regarding an eating disorder, and also about the manner in which she made learning fun in the classroom. It's the combination of her skills, passion, and compassion that make Mrs. Allen an exemplar recipient of this award, according to Frost Middle School Principal Shannon Wheeler. And Mrs. Wheeler is in attendance this evening. Thanks for being here. Mrs. Wheeler said, "Angela's kind, thoughtful, and supportive disposition towards student learning is amazing. She builds relationships with students that allow them enough freedom to make mistakes and enough grace to learn from them. She is a natural leader among her colleagues. She is quick to align herself with all things positive, and she assumes the best intentions of parents, staff, and students. She is a valuable resource for Livonia Public Schools, a role model for her department, and a true partner in education for the students and families she serves." And with that, I would like to congratulate Mrs. Allen for this award. And I'll turn the mic over to Mrs. Allen.
Good evening.
Congratulations.
Thank you. President Burton, members of the board, and Superintendent Oquist, thank you for inviting me here tonight to share in this celebration to honor Teacher of the Year recipients. Thank you, Stacy Jenkins, for heading up this nomination process, and to all the teachers, parents, administrators who have taken time to consider this award. I appreciate Mike Fenchel, Dan Willenborg, Tony Abate, Shannon Wheeler for your leadership within the buildings that I've taught. I've had 4 principals in my 24-year tenure with Livonia Public. And also thank you to the APs in this room. I see a couple that I've served with. Thank you for understanding that growth is a process. And thank you for giving grace for all the teachers within your building. Most importantly, thank you to the countless teachers who stood by my side, who encouraged me, who inspired me, who enlightened me, and sometimes dragged me through this professional journey called teaching. I am truly honored and humbled to be named one of the recipients for Livonia Public Schools Educator of the Year. I'm filled with gratitude to be recognized alongside other distinguished recipients, my coworkers honored previously, those that I know, and see some here to support us, thank you, as well as those who sit in the room with me, thank you. I think back to my very first day in the classroom. I was so excited What I didn't know was how oblivious I was. I was a highly unskilled teacher, but I had a really big will to be successful. I was completely unaware of what this profession actually demanded. I was also unaware of how rewarding it can be. I often think of those students in my early classrooms who taught me things about my skill set that were invaluable. Many times I learned those things the hard way, ending my day a disheveled and emotional mess. Yes, the emotional roller coaster is real, especially during the beginning of your career. It was also intense. I would go from, yes, I nailed it, to a classroom that felt in total disarray in the blink of an eye. Truthfully, it was exhausting, but the will to improve is built within the human psyche. I was determined to do so, but I could not do it alone. Teachers do not do this job alone. We do it together because together we are better. We all have a unique personality within our own classrooms, and we have our own individual strengths. We look to our teaching peers for inspiration where we need growth, and they look to us for the same. Together, we spur each other on to be better, making the collective experience better for our students and for our families. I cherish my fellow teachers doing the work every day right beside me. The numerous teachers in my journey who inspired me to be better. During my early years, I could be seen walking really slowly past a master teacher's classroom. I was amazed at their passion, I was amazed at their skill, and I was taking mental notes as I slowly passed. I deeply appreciate those that emotionally supported me, those who went above and beyond to mentor me, and those who shared their expertise with me. I treasure the teachers I look up to and who give me a higher standard to reach for. And I hope that I can inspire my fellow teachers the same way they inspire me. To our administrators, our parents, our students, our support staff, I appreciate you for giving us grace during our journey. We need grace as we learn and as we grow. I am very much obliged to the individuals who believed in me when I did not believe in myself. I so much wanted to be like those master teachers who walked the same halls I did. Watching those respected teachers, I committed not to be static, not to be complacent, not to be status quo. It's incredible to look back at the trajectory of my 28-year career. I am still learning so much from my students and my fellow teachers. They motivate me to have a mindset of constant improvement. This teaching profession is still exhausting, but it's also still rewarding. I still ride that roller coaster, but the hills are not as steep, the valleys are not as deep. It is incredible to see the significant changes the profession I started nearly 33 decades ago. The change is slow, but the difference compounds quickly. Our responsibilities within the classroom have grown significantly. Yet upon reflecting, some things never change. And one of those things is the will to be better and to do better. The grit factor is real, but it's so worth it. I do challenge teachers to maintain work-life balance, which for some of us is easier said than done. And to quote the mantra of longtime Franklin High School principal Dan Willenborg, take care of yourself, take care of others, take care of this place. Let us always remember to take care of ourselves so that we can do the important work of taking care of others and the places where we do our best work. With that, I need to thank my own family for continuously supporting me. To my husband, Marty, I know you don't exactly understand the demands of what it's like to be in a classroom, but you do understand my desire to be better and to do better. Again, I would like to thank Livonia Public Schools for recognizing a career of hard work and dedication. Beth Wright, Mary Lee Olson, April Adams, I am proud to stand alongside you tonight receiving this award. We represent so many teachers within the LPS community and their hard work. Our motto, teaming together to ensure learning for all, is part of our DNA. We do this job not because it's easy, but because collectively we do make a difference, a major difference in the lives of our students. I'd like to conclude by adapting a quote from Ken Coleman. He's a career coach, radio guy. Teachers use what we do best to do work we love to produce results in our students that matter. Thank you.
Okay, great job, Angie. All right, are you still with me? Oh, yes. Okay. Next up, we have, it's my pleasure to introduce you to Marilee Olson. Mrs. Olson, if you could please make the long journey to the podium here. And also, if I could have Board Secretary Karen Bradford join us. Mrs. Bradford will read a special resolution that we've prepared in Mrs. Olson's honor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations. I was going to sing this, but I think I'll just read it. All right, here we go. Whereas the trustees of the Board of Education are desirous of recognizing and promoting excellence in education in this school district. And whereas Marilee Olson, a vocal music teacher at Franklin High School and a 23-year employee of Livonia Public Schools, has distinguished herself by being named Secondary Education, good Lord, being named Secondary Educator of the Year for the 2022-23 school year by a district-wide committee. And whereas in achieving that recognition, it is evident that she is an exceptional educator going far beyond the expected range of her duties to meet the needs of students, colleagues, parents, and others. And whereas Marilee has shown a deep dedication to educating her students in the art of vocal music while serving as a role model, a supporter, a listener, and a steady, trusted adult for scores of students who learn and grow as a family in our high school choirs. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the trustees of the Board of Education do hereby commend and congratulate Marilee Olson for being named Secondary Educator of the Year for the 2022-2023 school year and for the dedication and loyal service she has rendered to Livonia Public Schools, her students, and the community. Congratulations.
And here's a fancy copy for you. All right. Welcome. You ready?
Are you ready?
Yes. Okay, as stated in the resolution, Marilee Olson is a 23-year veteran teacher in Livonia Public Schools. She teaches vocal music, serving as choir director at Franklin High School, where she has been teaching for the past 16 years. She also teaches music this year at Emerson Middle School. She is joined by her husband, Steve, which I think I saw Steve. Oh, were you taking pictures a minute ago? Okay. And they are parents to two adult children, Christopher and Mary Beth, both of whom graduated from Franklin High School. Mrs. Olson has a resume that stretches clear down to the floor, and that's just about her work at Franklin. She has led and been involved in providing many experiences for her choir students over the years. From connecting her students with musicians and instructors at MSU and EMU, to organizing Veterans Day concerts each year, dozens and dozens of seasonal concerts over the years, the popular student coffee house event, and even trips to New York City, Orlando, Chicago, the annual trip to Mackinac Island, and even spots in Europe. She leads the Bel Canto Choir on a community holiday tour each year, where students bring holiday cheer to senior citizens, the general public, schools, and even to central office. It's always a treat when Bel Canto stops by central office during our lunch break. Mrs. Olson also serves as musical director for the Franklin Players Productions. She is a mainstay in the Franklin Performing Arts Center, where many of her vocal music students spread their wings in the many top-notch productions of the Franklin Players. There are so many things we could include from her massive repertoire of school and community involvement, each activity centered around bringing out her students' beautiful voices. But for her students, it's not just about the singing. Being in choir at Franklin is being part of something larger. It's being part of a family, with Mrs. Olson sitting at the head of the table, smiling and listening to the table chatter and offering her gentle guidance and support. Her teaching philosophy centers around making every day a day of growth and change in a student's life. She knows that true teaching occurs after a relationship is established. Well, then there must be a lot of teaching and learning happening in the choir room each day, given the level of relationship building that happens there. Every year, the number of students who sign up for choir grows, showing that students feel a sense of belonging. They feel valued, and they are proud of their accomplishments at the end of each semester. The choir room is a safe place. It's a spot where students hang out together and eat lunch or stop by after school. At the end of 4 years, many seniors thank Mrs. Olson for allowing them to live in the choir room. And some of them even return to visit and hang out in their favorite high school classroom. Building a family in the choir room comes naturally for Mrs. Olson, being the mother of 2 adult children. She knows when to go with it and allow a special moment to happen. She knows when to be strict and remind students of her expectations. She knows when to offer a hug or just sit and allow students to surround her in her office during her short breaks throughout the school day or after school. They're not a bother to her, they're her kids. I know this from personal experience, having my daughter benefit from being involved in Franklin's choirs under the tutelage of Mrs. Olson. My daughter was somewhat shy and would never dream of singing by herself or performing in front of people. By her senior year, she was doing just that. She shocked her family when she performed a beautiful solo at the coffee house event, and she blew us away when she sang and danced in a few different roles in Beauty and the Beast during the spring of her senior year. Her confidence was built in the choir room, with unconditional support from Mrs. Olson and from her choir friends. There are countless stories from students who have been positively impacted by being involved in Franklin's choirs. Students who have gone from being alone or maybe even being bullied to finding their way and their voice in the choir room. As Mrs. Olson knows all too well, there is much more than music that is being taught in her classroom, and that's why she's always said that she is living the dream. Anytime you ask her, that's her response, because she gets to make music and build relationships with awesome young people all day, every day. And with that, I would like to congratulate Mrs. Olson on being named the Secondary Educator of the Year for Livonia Public Schools. And with that, I will turn it over to Mrs. Olson. I'm proud of myself. I made it through without.
She did. She did. I didn't write a fancy speech because I wasn't exactly sure what was going to be said. I have lots of things to say, but first of all, my first year teaching was in 1982. Do the math. And that's what I always wanted to do. I always wanted to be a teacher. I am the first college graduate from my family. And I just always said that's what I wanted to do. So I've never worked a day in my life. That's what I said when they presented me at Franklin High School, because I've always done what I wanted to do. So it's not ever been work. I always say, I'm going to school, I'm not going to work. I've never said I'm going to work. I always say, oh, I'm going to school. I don't know when I'm ever going to graduate, but all the things that that Stacy said is very true. My favorite days are days like today. Today was nothing special. It was just learning. We're working on our holiday music. People had come back from break. They're kind of like, by the time we got to the end of the hour, we'd gone through a whole lot of music. They didn't even realize it, that we had learned so many things. And that's my favorite days, those days. Even though in my in my profession as the choir director, there's lots of mountaintops. There's lots of concerts and musicals and things like that. But my favorite days are just those days when everyone's just doing their thing. And the boys say, could we stand on the chairs? We feel better singing if we're standing on the chairs. So they're all standing on the chairs. The girls are going, all right. So I have a ton of people to thank. I've taught music in 4 different states. In New York State is where I started.
in Georgia and in South Carolina. And when we landed here in 1999, I thought, wow, these people do not realize what they have in Livonia Public Schools. They just don't know what a great school district. Once you've taught other places, you realize what an amazing place Livonia Public Schools is. So I'm very happy that my children went through Livonia Public Schools. I'm happy for and very grateful for the way that Livonia Public Schools supports the arts. And there's a long tradition of that. When this first happened, Mr. Pacey, who was here, he put together, I walked into our Performing Arts Center and my choirs were on stage singing. And I kept saying to Andrew, what's going on? What's going on? I just couldn't figure out what was going on. My husband, I'm married very well, my husband was sitting there playing the piano and they're singing. And I'm like, what's going on? And he's like, just enjoy it. Your kids are singing for you. And I thought, what's going on? So I am very honored. I did not expect this at all, to be honored as a secondary teacher of the year. And I just want to be the representative of all those secondary teachers who every single day in the classroom do an amazing job. They build those relationships. They stop and, offer Kleenex in the shoulder and go to the guidance office. This is way above my pay grade, and those things that are very, very important, as well as the knowledge that these students need to go on. And at the secondary level, that's the end of the road, and there are things that they need to know personally and emotionally as well as academically. So I am very grateful for my husband. He's a retired teacher, so he does understand exactly exactly why I'm still at school at 10 o'clock at night. And he's like, do you need something? Are you coming home anytime soon? But it's been a great time with Livonia since 1999. And one of the other things that kind of flitted through my mind as I was standing there watching my kids sing was my gratefulness to Dan Willenborg, because Dan not only was the principal during my children's time at Franklin, but also a great supporter of the arts. And I'm like, Dan, you should have hung on for one more year so that he could have been here for this. So thank you very much, and I'm just shocked and honored to be here, and I just hope that you enjoy December 22nd around 11. Sounds great. All right, I'll put you in ink. But my students will be here, and we'll be happy to be part of your holiday celebration on that day. So thank you very much, and thank you to Stacy. She's the representative of many, many, many parents that have been supportive and have helped me do what I need to do by helping so much. So thank you so much.
Okay. All right. Last but certainly not least, I would love to invite Mrs. April Adams to join me at the podium. And if I could ask Board Trustee Tammy Bonifield to also join us to read the resolution that we've prepared for Mrs. Adams.
Whereas the trustees of the Board of Education are desirous of recognizing and promoting excellence in education in this school district, and whereas April Adams, a paraprofessional at Cleveland Elementary School and a 6-year employee of Livonia Public Schools, has distinguished herself by being named Support Staff of the Year for 2022-2023 by the district-wide committee, and whereas in achieving that recognition, it is evident that she is an exceptional employee of Livonia Public Schools, going far beyond the expected range of her duties to meet the needs of students, colleagues, parents, and others. And whereas April has shown a deep dedication to supporting her students by working one-on-one with them to ensure that they are gaining the most they can throughout every aspect of their school day, and doing so in a friendly, caring, and professional manner. Now therefore be it resolved that the trustees of the Board of Education do hereby commend and congratulate April Adams for being named Support Staff of the Year for 22-23 and for the dedication and loyal service that she has rendered to Livonia Public Schools, her students, and the community. Congratulations, April.
Thank you, Tammy. Hello. Here's a fancy copy for you.
Thank you.
Okay. As stated in the resolution, April Adams has been named the LPS Support Staff Person of the Year for the entire district. We started the Support Staff of the Year program a few years ago to be able to recognize the contributions that our many, many amazing support staff make to our schools and the LPS family. April is a 6-year LPS employee and serves as a special education paraprofessional at Cleveland Elementary. She joins us tonight with her husband Jason and their 2 children, Abigail, who attends Franklin High School, and Hunter, who attends Emerson Middle School. Thanks for being here, guys. I can attest to the fact that when April Adams' name is mentioned in regards to Cleveland Elementary School, the response is a unanimous, resounding, "She's awesome!" Not surprisingly, Mrs. Adams received 3 nominations for this recognition, and Principal Witherspoon skillfully arranged a surprise announcement at the school by secretly orchestrating an all-school assembly on the blacktop on the playground to make this announcement. The entire blacktop was filled with kids, and it was so much fun. She had no idea what was happening. While April may officially be a few students' person throughout the school day, her impact is felt across the school. Colleague Allison King had this to say about April. She walked into the classroom every day with a big smile and infectious high spirits. She greeted each child with a hug and positive comments. The students adored her. This same teacher told a story that describes April's care and compassion and how she instills those traits into students at Cleveland. This is a cute little story. The teacher's cat, did you know this was going to be about Boo? The teacher's cat, named Boo, had passed away. Her students and Mrs. Adams knew how much her cat meant to her, and she would always share stories with her, she would always share stories about Boo with her class. April arranged for dozens of students in multiple classrooms, all up and down the hallway, to make sympathy cards for Miss King, and wrote a large note across the classroom whiteboard that read, "We are sorry for the loss of Boo. We love you, Miss King." Parents even reached out to offer their sympathy, and one parent told Miss King that her child asked if their family could buy her a new kitty. Miss King said, "April has a heart of gold." Principal Rob Witherspoon noted that April's success stories relating to her work with students are numerous, but he shared the story of one fourth grade student she had worked with since kindergarten. With an autism spectrum disorder diagnosis, this student received daily support from Mrs. Adams, which turned out to be his secret weapon to his educational growth. Mr. Witherspoon noted the changes and the growth in this student. He had gained so much in the way of confidence and ability that he ended up being exited from the special education program altogether. Mr. Witherspoon said that this is just one of many similar stories, adding that April is highly motivated to ensure success and independence for each student she works with, and is a ray of sunshine even in the most challenging situations. He went on to say, quote, "I couldn't think of anyone better to receive this honor. She is honestly one of the most genuine, kindest, dedicated, and hardest working people I have ever been associated with in all of my life." And you can check that quote with Mr. Witherspoon, who's here in the audience this evening. Thanks for being here. And with that, I would like to congratulate April Adams on being named the LPS Support Staff Person of the Year for Livonia Public Schools. and I'll turn it over to April.
I don't have a long speech either. I'm not very good at this. So
Congratulations.
Thank you guys so much. It makes my heart so happy. First of all, I want to thank God for giving me patience and guidance to do this job every day. It's just, I feel so blessed that I get to go to work and work with these kids. My family, thank you for always supporting me and loving me. Second, I'd like to thank LPS, Cleveland Elementary, and their incredible teachers and staff who have become just friends and family to me. This award means so much to me, but it also means so much to me. What also means so much to me is watching the kids in my care grow daily and move towards independence. I love seeing the excitement in their faces and in their smiles when I tell them, I'm so proud of you and you did it. And that's every day. There's just something, it just makes my heart so happy. It truly brings my heart so much joy knowing that I was able to encourage and support them. Teaching them to show kindness and compassion towards others is one of my favorite parts of the day. I love going to work every day and being a part of such a caring and kind community. The kids, the staff, the friendships, I would not want to do anything or be anywhere else. I'm so grateful and my heart is so full and happy. And thank you again. I'm so grateful. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. And that concludes our presentations. So let's give all of our honorees another round of applause.
That is wonderful. You mentioned it's a highlight of the year for you. It certainly is for us and for all of those involved in this whole process. We're so blessed to have so many phenomenal folks in the LPS team, and to be able to single out and elevate and show the wonderful example that the four of you are living in our buildings is wonderful. It's very, very encouraging. It's a highlight of our year also to come to this evening. Are there comments or questions from the superintendent or board members? Mrs. Bradford.
I just want to say that was just so wonderful to hear all of the different stories and the backgrounds of all our recipients. And, I think it just encompasses what our district is all about. And without all of you and representing us, our district, in such a fantastic and awesome way, it's all about our kids. And I'm so grateful that you're in our classrooms every day, doing the hard work that you do and listening to the backgrounds. I was a former teacher. I think Dan was. We can all understand the daily rigors and how the days just go every day. They're probably so interesting. There's high points, there's low points, there's different points of the day every time, but that's what makes teaching so special. And your gifts and talents are just amazing to me, and I think to all of us on this board how grateful we are for the work that you do every day on behalf of the students. And that's what we're all about, a community of caring and compassion and dedication in getting our young people, giving them the skills that they need to be successful, and it's evident in all that you do every day. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Mrs. Bradford. Mrs. Oquist.
Thank you. Well, congratulations to each and every one of you. This has been such a blessing to hear. Mrs. Jenkins, you did a wonderful job. It is no easy task, so recognizing you. She truly does put her heart and soul in trying to capture the essence of the work that you do. And it truly is work of the heart for anyone who has not been involved in education. What was woven through each one of the stories in the remarks that were shared about you, as well as what you shared about your reflections, just reflected how much you care about your students, how much you care about your colleagues, how much you care about this school community. And it shows in so many ways. And oftentimes those are little ways each and every day, each hour, each day, each week as we go on. It is not easy work. It is not for the faint of heart. And we are so grateful that you do it, and you do it so beautifully. So thank you for representing us. We look forward to celebrating you at different points throughout this year and recognizing you. And we're so grateful for all that you give to the children that you serve.
Any other comments from board members? Yes, absolutely. We need to take care of one item of business on this and officially vote on this motion. We have before us motion for 2022-2023 Educators and Support Staff of the Year. Motion by Mr. Johnson, supported by Mrs. Bradford. And Mrs. Bradford, would you please take the vote?
Of course. Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mrs. Bradford says yes. Mrs. Jarvis?
Yes.
Mr. Centers?
Yes.
Mrs. Bonnefield?
Yes.
Mrs. Acosta?
Yes.
President Burton?
Yes, and that motion passes. Congratulations again. The next item on our agenda is related, and that is item 3B, the American Education Week. May I have a motion, please?
President Burton,
Mrs. Acosta.
move that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District designate November 14th through the 18th, 2022 as the 101st Annual Observance of American Education Week.
Support.
We have a motion by Mrs. Acosta, supported by Mrs. Jarvis. And Mrs. Jenkins.
Yes, thank you, President Burton. Each year, our district, like those across the U.S., recognizes American Education Week, which was designated this year for the week of November 14th through the 18th. 2022 marks the 101st year that American Education Week has been observed in our country. The history behind American Education Week actually dates back to 1919, when the National Education Association was concerned that 25% of the nation's World War I draftees did not know how to read. The NEA teamed up with the American Legion to seek ways to generate support for education. In 1921, the NEA Assembly in Des Moines, Iowa, during an NEA Assembly in Des Moines, Iowa, a designation was created to recognize 1 week each year to spotlight education, calling for an educational week observed in all communities annually for the purpose of informing the public of the accomplishments and needs of the public schools and to secure the cooperation and support of the public in meeting those needs. Before too long, the observance was co-sponsored by the U.S. Office of Education, the National PTA, the American Legion Auxiliary, and a whole host of other organizations. The tradition continues today, and the resolution before you describes in detail the rationale for commemorating American Education Week each year in our country, our state, and in Livonia Public Schools. At this time, I would like to invite Board Trustee Madeline Acosta to join me at the podium to read the resolution. And I'd also like to invite Cooper Upper Elementary 5th grade teacher Kitty Yost to join us to accept the resolution.
Whereas public schools are the backbone of our democracy, American Education Week, November 14th through 18th, 2022, resolution. Whereas public schools are the backbone of our democracy, providing young people with the tools they need to maintain our nation's precious values of freedom, civility, and equality. And whereas by equipping young Americans with both practical skills and broader intellectual abilities, schools give them hope for and access to a productive future. And whereas public education employees work tirelessly to serve our children and communities with care and professionalism. And whereas schools unite entire communities, bringing together adults and children, educators and volunteers, business leaders and elected officials in a common purpose. Now therefore, be it resolved that the trustees of the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District do hereby proclaim November 14th through 18th, 2022 as the 101st annual observance of American Education Week, and urge all citizens to make a commitment to public education and to the future of our children. Be it further resolved that the trustees of the Livonia Public Schools Board of Education take this special occasion to thank Livonia Public Schools employees, parents, and community volunteers for the work they do to educate and support the children of our school district.
Thank you, Trustee Acosta, and a special thanks to Mrs. Yost, who we recruited just before the meeting to come and accept the resolution on behalf of the Livonia Education Association. So thank you, Mrs. Yost.
Are there comments or questions from the superintendent or board members? It was interesting hearing the details of the resolution read aloud and thinking of how many examples of that go on in Livonia Public Schools every single day. I mean, first, the mention of the community supporting our school district, which they've done. The first thing that came to my mind was our two recent bonds to support all kinds of improvements, technological, performing arts, safety, IT, throughout in addition to heating and windows and ventilation and so forth that we needed updated, that was supported by citizens in our community, many of whom don't walk into our buildings every day, but they support these things anyway because they know it's important for our kids. The businesses that support organizations such as the robotics program, the enormous number of parent volunteers throughout our district, the PTA in Livonia Public Schools, which is consistently the top or one of the top PTAs in the state of Michigan, one of the largest and most active. So we are just really, really blessed to have these words, not just written on a resolution that gets filed away somewhere, but in our community we really live this every day, and we are so blessed to have such a large and generous community with their time and their resources to be able to support our kids in our community. So it's pretty exciting to see that that's actually played out every day. Any other comments from board members or the superintendent? Seeing none, we have a motion by motion for American Education Week, motion by Mrs. Acosta, supported by Mrs. Jarvis. And Mrs. Bradford, will you please take the roll?
Mrs. Acosta?
Yes.
Mrs. Jarvis?
Yes.
Mrs. Bradford says yes. Mrs. Bonifield?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Centers?
Yes.
President Burton?
Yes, and that motion passes. Thank you, Mrs. Jenkins. At this time, we are on to item 3C, district update from the superintendent, and I will turn it over to Mrs. Oquist.
Well, thank you so much, President Burton. It is almost difficult to follow that start to the meeting, but we always love to share some highlights. So if you could, anyone in the audience can pick any screen closest to them, and we'll share some highlights with you. So just some sneak peeks of fall learning that is happening. Have we gone past? I think we went past the first one. Oh, there we go. We have some kiddos there doing some wonderful writing and reading, and that growth is happening. We're just coming to the end of the first trimester for our elementary kiddos, and just recently completed the first card marking for our secondary students, and that learning just continues in full swing. We see some of our students from Team Life Skills at the Skill Center. They made pumpkin bites, and I think they look pretty delicious. Some wonderful things happening there. And also some of our Churchill students creating a nutrient bean while they were studying the 6 essential nutrients in health class. If you can believe it, it seems so far away, doesn't it? We've already passed Thanksgiving, and we are swinging right into the Christmas season, but we're going to look back at some of the Halloween fun. It is certainly one of the highlights for our kiddos throughout the year, and so we had parades at many levels. We had, you'll see on the next slide, some trunk or treats, and boy, are our families creative. I'll tell you what, many of our schools hosted trunk or treat events, and so we loved the opportunity to celebrate with our students, to bring the community together and to have them celebrating and enjoying this special time. And then we moved right on to some special Thanksgiving celebrations. Many of our schools had their own versions of Thanksgiving or Friendsgiving before they went off with their families, and so we see our kiddos there celebrating and enjoying some special treats as we headed into the Thanksgiving break, which we hope was a special one for all of you. We had an opportunity recently to kick off our Vision Forward team. So our Vision Forward team is our former district school improvement team. It's a truly amazing group of stakeholders. We have almost 60 folks on the team. We have parents and educators and support staff, administrators, board members, community and business partners. Our first meeting was held at the end of October, and our next one is coming up in just a couple of weeks. So you see a few of the tables there. And our work this year is to create the portrait of an LPS graduate. We are very excited about building that together, and that will come out to our entire community to give some input as well. And we will also be updating our district's collective commitment. So those are two big tasks on the docket for this Vision Forward team, and I know they are up for the challenge. So this past couple of weeks, we have seen some phenomenal performances in our Performing Arts Center. The Franklin Players did a wonderful production of Clue, and you see a couple of those shots here. And then we had Kappa performing Legally Blonde just a couple of weeks ago, and certainly wowed their audiences there. And at Stevenson, a play called All the King's Women. It was about Elvis, and just a fantastic performance there as well. When you have an opportunity, please, please, please support our schools and our performers. The amount of time the students on stage as well as the students behind the scenes put into these performances is truly unbelievable. And at the end of this update, you're going to see a list of concert performances that are coming up for the holiday season. So this will go on our website. You can refer back to it at any time. But you will be entertained. You will not believe that you are seeing high schoolers on the stage. All of the volunteers and the staff, and of course our talented students that make this happen, I just can't tell you, they blow us away each and every time. And I know when we were speaking about Mrs. Olson, one of the things that Mrs. Jenkins highlighted is the wonderful Songs for Unsung Heroes concert that's done around Veterans Day every year by the Franklin Bel Canto Choir. And so you see them here. And Frost Craft Show was back as good as ever and filled with some amazing, talented artists. And filled with lots of eager buyers. So great job, Frost, for hosting the annual craft show. And we had Turkey Bowl. Churchill had a great turnout for their 27th annual Turkey Bowl. And I think we see some winners in the center who may be part of the admin team over there at Churchill, looking pretty proud of their trophies. And we want to give some notable items from across the district. We had just a ton of, as you know, the one thing that our community is known for and that our schools just dive right into is that opportunity to help others within the community. So these are just a few of literally dozens and dozens of examples. But here we see our Emerson Eagles. They collected more than 1,500 cans of food for the Helping Hands Food Pantry and over $250 for Livonia Goodfellows. Churchill High School always just exceeds expectations. Over 30,000 cans of food for Gleaners Food Bank. 30,000. Absolutely amazing. Last week, both Stevenson and Frost held their annual Fleece and Thank You. It's a blanket making project. These blankets are made by our students at these Fleece and Thank You events, and they're given to children in local hospitals while they're receiving treatment with a special message from each of the makers of the blanket. So thank you to our staff and volunteers who coordinated this. Often this is done through National Honor Society or other groups, but a wonderful turnout and always a special event. And we see here our Stevenson Symphonic Choir. They performed at St. Mary's during their community Thanksgiving dinner. And we had Stevenson Powder Puff game was amazing. Over $2,000 was raised just a couple of weeks ago. And so you see the students in each of the grades in the different colors. And I know Ms. Rosman coordinates that over at Stevenson. So way to go for collecting quite a sum for what I know the the kids really enjoy being involved in that activity. And we have some other talented singers. We had students from the Stevenson Vocal Music Department who were at the Solo and Ensemble Festival. So congratulations to these 5 who received a Division I rating for their superior performance. We had Catherine LaPointe, Isabella Greenway, Addison Bell, Hannah Dittmeyer, and Natalie Patera. So congratulations to those talented singers. And what do teenagers normally do if they have a day off of school? Maybe they sleep in, maybe they just take some time to watch a movie or play video games or hang out with friends. While these students from Churchill spent their day off going throughout our entire community, raking leaves and helping neighbors and making a difference in their community. So kudos to them and to our staff who helped coordinate that. We had a couple of district championships at Franklin. It's been an exciting time. They are not unfamiliar to those acknowledgments, but we had the Franklin volleyball team first district championship in over 20 years, Mr. Pacey? Yeah, and very exciting. They earned their title as district champs. Congratulations to our hardworking volleyball team. And Franklin football just continued to excel. They were also district champs and went on to play really, really well in their regional game the following week. So congratulations, quite an honor for our student athletes, their coaches, and their families. And we had the KLAA swim championships, so we had big congratulations. We had all of our teams participating, many students recognized in top 10 performances in the KLAA championships. And on the next slide, you're going to see a three-peat state champ. So that is, it is to be a Division I state champion in any sport is quite a feat. To do it 3 years in a row is absolutely phenomenal. So next month, we will welcome Mackenzie Soroki, who is finishing her swim career as a state champion once again in the 100-meter breaststroke. She broke her own state record for the 3rd year in a row. And she also finished 3rd in the 50-meter freestyle and was part of a very successful relay team. So way to go, Mackenzie, and we can't wait to see you here next month. Also, tell us. Yeah.
Well, Mackenzie was All-American in the 100 breaststroke.
Okay.
My daughter, Kari,
Yes.
her on the relay team.
All right, way to go.
All-American.
Congratulations.
Amazing, amazing. The relay team, what was the distance?
200 medley relay. Kari swam the back, Mackenzie swam the breast, Faith Robertson swam the fly, and Allie Allen swam the freestyle.
Fantastic. What a better, there couldn't have been a better night for you to be here.
Second in the state.
Wow.
They got All-American.
Fantastic. Congratulations. Lots of early mornings. Lots of hard work. So thank you. Congratulations for that. We had our Churchill Chargers representing strong in the cross-country MHSAA state championships. Always tough competition, and we are so proud of the hard work that they put in just day in and day out. The Frost Robo Falcons are champions. They won their way through, earning a spot to the Michigan State Championships in December. They made some phenomenal alliances and just continued to excel in their work, and we are so proud of all of our robotics team, and our Frost Robo Falcons just continue to knock it out of the park. And some of our Franklin Honors musicians had a really special opportunity to head out to perform with the Eastern Michigan University Honors Orchestra. They also performed in that beautiful auditorium on campus as part of they spent the day out there, and then they performed as part of that final performance. So you see 5 of our talented musicians there on the left, and they were part of that group on the right. So what a special opportunity for them. And last week was big for our LPS Education Foundation. What a number. I mean, they awarded over $41,000 in grants to staff and schools across the district. So a round of applause to the LPS Education Foundation. These are just a few of the grant recipients. Normally the grants range from maybe several $100s to a couple of $1,000s. And our staff, any staff member in the district, any role, is able to apply for a foundation grant, and those were awarded over the past couple of weeks. It's always a surprise. The big check comes in. It's not Publishers Clearinghouse, but it's close. So thank you so much to the LPS Education Foundation. Our own Mrs. Jarvis is the president, and we have our executive director, Laura Ulasik, here. So thank you so much for all the work that went into coordinating these surprise presentations throughout the district. We had a few more grants from MEMIC. They awarded a number of our teachers $300 classroom makeover grants. And so we had a number of happy recipients over the past couple of weeks in that area as well. And these folks should look familiar. Have you heard about them? They are making the circuit. They're on the highlight. So we'll just once again congratulate Beth Wright from Grant and Angie Allen from Frost. Looks like quite the celebration. And of course, Marilee Olson from Franklin, our secondary educator of the year. And certainly April Adams with the whole crew at Cleveland, LPS support staff member of the year. So we can't wait to continue to celebrate you and all that you represent that is good about who we are in Livonia Public Schools. So a few quick notes to end. Mark your calendar for these. We have the Marion Bright Parade this Sunday, so we're hoping for no rain. That is our goal. So 4 o'clock on Sunday, we have a ton of kiddos that will be coming through, scouts groups and athletic teams and bands coming through. So if you have an opportunity, really right outside of central office here, where am I pointing?
That way.
I'm going to point that way. If you're there, we're normally on one of the corners as well. So we have a ton of students who will be marching in the parade. It starts at 4, it comes right down through, and then ends with a tree lighting at City Hall if you can join us. And here is what we promised, the holiday concerts. If you have an evening free, you will not be disappointed. So this will go up on our website. We will have all of these available. But really, from dance showcases to holiday concerts, band and orchestra, please try to check one out and support our students. And that is it. Thank you, President Burton, for letting us share those highlights.
Thank you. That's always so much fun at our meeting to get a lot of the highlights of all the exciting things going on in the district. At this time, we are going to take about a 5 to 10 minute recess, so those of us who are in attendance this evening can congratulate our honorees. Then we will continue on with the rest of the business of our evening. Right now, we are at recess. Good evening. Welcome to the continuation of the Livonia Public Schools Board of Education regular meeting of November 28th, 2022. If you are just now joining us, rewind the tape and watch the beginning of our meeting when we celebrated a whole lot of folks, our educators and support staff of the year. It's pretty exciting to have 2,000 staff members and have some of the best of the best being honored this evening. So, fun evening. We are moving on in our agenda. We are on to item 3D, written communications. Do any board members have any written communications that they would like to share with fellow board members at this time? With the era of electronic communications, that's a rarity. So, the next item on our agenda is item 3E, response to prior audience communications. Over the past couple of meetings, we have had some parents ask about safety plans for students at Rosedale Elementary School, and just wanted to report back to the community at large that the principal, the director of elementary education, and the director of special education are all in communication with the parents involved with the situations going on at that school. I don't have any other response to prior audience communications. The next item on our agenda is item 3F, audience communications. I do have 3 slips from folks who would like to communicate with the board this evening. Just as an overview, audience communications is a time that is set aside for the board to listen to comments from the community on whatever topic they wish to speak to us about. It is very intentionally not a question and answer kind of a session, but rather a listening session. We do have a time limit of 3 minutes per person. The reason that we have that time limit is so that we can be fair and equitable to everybody who speaks to the board. We will have a timer that will be set for 3 minutes. So if you're speaking and you hear that tone go off, you'll know that it's time to wrap up your comments. We just do that because we find that it's a more polite way than interrupting a speaker. So if you're still speaking and you hear that tone, if you could wrap up your comments, that would be appreciated. This is a good time to go over quickly the role of the Board of Education versus the role of the administration in the school district. The role of the Board of Education is threefold, and that is to hire and evaluate the superintendent, to set policy for the district, and set the long-term goals and align the finances to those goals. Those are the roles of the Board of Education. If you have a specific question this evening and it pertains to those specific areas, you could expect a response from a board member regarding your question. If you have a specific question this evening and it relates to pretty much anything else, everything else falls in the daily operations kind of a category. If you have a specific question and it pertains to other items in the daily operations of the schools, you can expect a response from the appropriate administrator. We have 3 folks who would like to speak with us this evening. The first is Ellen Kane. Ellen, you're welcome to join us at the podium.
Make sure she puts the mic
Yes. Is Ellen still with us this evening? I don't believe she's still here. Alrighty. The next is Andrea. Andrea Rutkowski. If I'm pronouncing that correctly. And if you can tap the little red, on the base, the red, until just tap it lightly. There you go. When it turns green, you're good to go.
Mine.
Welcome this evening.
Thank you for having me, Superintendent Oquist and esteemed board members. I appreciate you hearing me today. But it gives me great pause to have to approach you today after we celebrated the great accomplishments of such wonderful teachers in our great district. I'm here with many parents and many other parents in spirit to talk about something that you've already broached. It's the safety of the students at Rosedale Elementary. You know, I truly believe in the power of education and the development of our children, their ability to achieve and thrive in great adversity. But as a formally educated woman, and more importantly as a mother, I know when it's time to intervene, and that time is now. The student has been causing daily learning interruptions. My son has been on the wrong side of his aggressions and misplaced anger. In fact, he was a challenge in other classrooms before he came to ours. And, you know, the classroom is consistently interrupted with violent displays and outbursts. The classroom has even been evacuated, not once, but multiple times. And all of these times, no communication was sent home to the parents. We got that by way of the people who were in attendance of that classroom. I personally witnessed this child On November 16th, using their body against a paraprofessional, aggressively twisting her arm, and then throwing a laptop on the floor with the intent to damage it, narrowly missing another student's head. This list is in no way comprehensive, as you're well aware, but a peek of these activities should be appalling, and most are most certainly against our bullying protocol. I have concerns because parents have asked for information about safety protocols and their requests remain unfilled. We're not informed when our children have incidents, when their learning is interrupted to the point of needing a total reset, or worse, when the classroom, like I said, is evacuated. Things keep happening and we're not being notified. And these are not the actions of the healthy learning community I consider LPS to be. Because this isn't one-off behavior, I can't help but feel that brushing all of these actions off is creating a state of complicity, knowing that there's an issue, not doing anything about it to find the best possible road, a positive road for this student. It's reprehensible, especially in today's society where violence is so rampant. When is the right time to intervene? Are we willing to take on the burden of being complicit in behavior that down the road we brushed aside? Is there a value to my son and to the other children of that school to have a safe learning environment? You know, most of you as former educators and those educated in the realm of education, the children must have safety. That need has to be satisfied before they can even learn anything. So I'm asking you to provide us with the information we requested, provide our children with a safe environment, provide our teacher with a classroom that's free of interruption, so that this third grade curriculum that is so, so important and such a benchmark of our child's academic careers, so that can happen in the most peaceful way possible. Is that the bell? Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Kenya Zibberman. Good evening.
Good evening. I am back again for the third time to address the board as well as the school district. I have been in communication with the school district and Mr. Green, as well as been in communication with Paula Kohler, who is the principal of Rosedale Elementary School. The questions and the concerns are still the same. They remain the same. Although the threat was removed from my son's classroom, he's now been moved over to another classroom, and the threat continues. We have met regarding the safety plan, but it's not working. It downright sucks, for lack of a better use of words. I met with Mr. Green and the principal of Rosedale on Friday to go over how they plan to keep my child safe, as well as the other children safe, dealing with a child with very volatile behavior. A plan was sort of put in place. That following Monday, the plan failed. This child was supposed to be paired with a parapro. He was not. He was allowed to sit in the lunchroom and go to recess without a parapro. And during that time, he was able to taunt my kid and bully my kid, the same kid that he threatened about a month ago, where I have a police report. It is unacceptable, and I am tired. So at this point, I feel like the superintendent owes me a conversation. I am prepared to file a complaint. I have been in contact with the Michigan representative for the Department of Education, and I am prepared to go to the news until our questions get answered, until I can feel that my child can go to school safe and get an education without fear, until I feel that the other parents can send their kids to school to learn without fear. Although this child is no longer in my kid's classroom, he still asks the teacher, "Can you lock the door?" That's unacceptable. So at one point, is enough enough? At what point is his volatile behavior going to be dealt with at the school district level that he's no longer there? Because if I move my son out of the school district, it's going to cost you $7,890, as well as attorney fees. I don't want to have to come back, but I will return until this can get resolved.
until I can see a clear plan in place to keep my child as well as the other kids in this school safe. It is unacceptable. And I think right now, you probably need to get together and let's come up with a true plan when it comes to threats and safety for our students. I'm not talking about safety in the hallways, how to behave on the bus, how not to run outside. I'm talking about clear threats from kids that have volatile behavior. Because I would have been wrong as a parent on Monday when he teased my child and targeted my child to have him defend himself since the school obviously can't. I would have been wrong as a parent.
Thank you for sharing your
Thank
comments,
you.
Mrs. Zimmerman. The school district has been dealing with an ongoing situation. The school board has a bit of our, the school board cannot disclose information about individual students any more than we can about one student or another. But I would encourage you to continue your communication with the people who you are communicating which would be the principal, the director of elementary education, and the director of special education. I know they are very aware of the situation and are keeping on top of it on a regular basis. I cannot disclose information about any individual student, nor could I.
I don't think we're asking for you to disclose personal information. We're asking you to protect our children.
I guess what would be the plan for our kids then? We don't
And
need
if-
to know his plan, we need to know the plan for our children, because this is, I mean, we've seen it happen. It
And
gets thrown under the
Mr.
rug.
Green, can you make sure that you contact the folks who are here this evening, and I've got blue slips for them? Thank you. Do you want some blue slips? Okay, I'm sorry. Those would-
all of us filled one out.
There you go. You got that? Okay. The next item on our agenda is the consent agenda, which is item 4. May I have a motion, please?
President Burton,
Mr. Johnson.
move that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District approve the following consent agenda items as recommended by the superintendent. 5A, minutes of the regular meeting of October 17, 2022. 5B, minutes of the special meeting of October 17th, 2022.
Support.
We have a motion by Mr. Johnson, supported by Mr. Centers. Are there any items that board members would like removed from the consent agenda in order to discuss them individually before we vote on the consent agenda as a whole? Nope. Seeing none, we have a I'm sorry? Yeah, Mrs. Wasan?
Mr. Johnson, would you be able to reread the motion? I put the incorrect date on that cap sheet, but the second set of minutes is actually November 7th,
The special meeting?
special meeting.
Okay.
All right,
Well,
let me,
right, we will have the motion reread.
all right, move that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District approve the following consent agenda items as recommended by the superintendent. 5A, minutes of the regular meeting of October 17th, 2022. 5B, minutes of the special meeting of November 7th, 2022.
Support.
We have a motion by Mr. Johnson, supported by Mr. Centers. Are there any items that board members wish to have removed from the consent agenda to have discussed independently before we vote on the consent agenda as a whole? Seeing none, we have a motion for the consent agenda. Motion by Mr. Centers, motion by Mr. Johnson, supported by Mr. Centers. And Mrs. Bradford, would you please take the roll?
Mr. Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Centers,
Yes.
Mrs. Acosta,
Yes.
Mrs. Bonnefield,
Yes.
Mrs. Bradford says yes, Mrs. Jarvis,
Yes.
and President Burton.
Yes, and that motion passes. The next item is item 6, business matters. 6A is the approval of Garfield Greenhouse site work. May I have a motion, please?
President Burton,
Mrs. Acosta.
move that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District authorize the purchase of the required site work necessary for the Garfield Greenhouse to Simone Companies, Shelby Township, Michigan, in the amount of $238,245, which includes contingency.
Support.
We have a motion by Mrs. Acosta, supported by Mrs. Jarvis. And we'll hear from Mr. Francis on this.
Thank you, President Burton. This is the site work for the planned installation of the greenhouse at Garfield Community School. This project is something that has been a long time in the works. As you well know, this is a partnership with Healthy Livonia, the City of Livonia, and Livonia Public Schools. And we've had some difficulty in the past getting folks to bid on this project. So it's been delayed, but now we do have what we believe is a company who has committed to, has given us quotes on all of the work and is committed to this work. So we do recommend Simone Companies to do the site work at Garfield. Knowing that we've had a long time in coming with this, I want to give just a little bit of an update. To the best of our knowledge, as we sit here today in late November of '22, what we're looking at is, and I believe Mr. Johnson had brought this up at the Committee of the Whole, just wondering about the timeline. With the way frost laws work, we'll be starting when we're allowed to, based upon the frost laws of the state of Michigan. So that's usually, depending on how the weather is, somewhere in that March, April, May time period. So we can say that in the spring, when allowed, the heavy equipment can come out and start working on this over at Garfield. This is going to include things like clearing the site, excavating, concrete, etc. And then what we also know is that the company Clearspan, who we purchased, it was, if you recall, the greenhouse was, for lack of a better word, a prefabricated kit that gets put together, and they had the engineering plans, and they will then assemble it. We have possession of the greenhouse, all of the parts. They would come in afterwards. So we believe that under normal circumstances, somewhere in the middle of summer, maybe very late spring, early summer, would have the site work hopefully completed, and then we would move into the building of the actual greenhouse. So we look forward to somewhere in the early fall having the greenhouse actually erected on site. So we'll be keeping, if that dramatically changes, I'm sure we'll be talking more at future meetings, but I just wanted to give a bit of an update on this because I know that Dr. Terrell has worked very hard on this, Mr. Lau has worked very hard on this, and the board has hung with us through our discussions of this project, and we continue to be very excited and anticipate this project to come to completion, and we're gonna hang in there.
Sounds excellent. Happy to have it getting on the schedule finally. Are there any, again, this item, along with several others from here on down, are some that we have discussed at length at previous meetings. So, are there any other comments or questions from the superintendent or board members on this item? Seeing none, we have a motion for the approval of Garfield Greenhouse site work. Motion by Mrs. Acosta, supported by Mrs. Jarvis. And Mrs. Bradford, would you please take the roll?
Mrs. Acosta.
Yes.
Mrs. Jarvis.
Yes.
Mrs. Bradford says yes. Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Centers?
Yes.
Mrs. Bonifield?
Yes.
President Burton?
Yes, and that motion passes. Happy to have that underway. The next item on our agenda is item 6B, approval of resolution for stormwater management. May I have a motion, please?
President Burton,
Mrs. Jarvis.
move that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District approve the attached resolution for the school district's stormwater management plan.
Support.
We have a motion by Mrs. Jarvis, supported by Mr. Centers. Are there any, I'm sorry, Mr. Francis?
Sure. The attached resolution is basically a standard resolution that the board is approving because this is a requirement of our application for renewal with regard to our storm water management plans. And this is required because we do continue to do work on our properties via sinking fund, via bond, and other funded projects that we have. We are required to maintain and update our application and our approvals through Wayne County and the state of Michigan. And again, this is one of those requirements. We don't have, or you don't have as a Board of Education, the ability to pass laws, you pass resolutions. And this is our commitment to fulfill the requirements of the district when it comes to disturbing earth and tapping into stormwater, et cetera. This is our water management pledge is the word I could use for you. It is your resolution.
Thank you. It is a rather lengthy resolution. If anyone would like to read it, it is available on our website. Again, it's under the board information. So go to the board tab, hover under board information, and you can find it under tonight's agenda. Are there any comments or questions from the superintendent or board members on this item? Seeing none, we have a motion for approval of resolution for stormwater management. Motion by Mrs. Jarvis, supported by Mr. Centers. Mrs. Bradford, would you please take the roll?
Mrs. Jarvis?
Yes.
Mr. Centers?
Yes.
Mrs. Acosta?
Yes.
Mrs. Bonnefield?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mrs. Bradford says yes. President Burton?
Yes, and that motion passes. The next item on our agenda is item 7, personnel matters, and 7A is teachers for approval. May I have a motion, please?
President Burton?
Mrs. Bradford.
Move that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District accept the recommendation of the superintendent and offer employment for the 2022-23 school year to the teachers listed on the attached document.
Support.
We have a motion by Mrs. Bradford, supported by Mrs. Acosta. And we will hear from Mr. Abate.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
The new staff members we are presenting to the board this evening have been selected to fill our needs in special education, shared time, elementary, and secondary instruction. They're all well qualified to fill these positions and have been fully vetted through our extensive interview process. We are confident they will perform at a high level and represent Livonia Public Schools in a manner consistent with our shared vision and collective commitments. These positions have also been included in the 2022-2023 budget. We are pleased to be recommending these talented professionals to join our LPS family, and with your approval, we are excited to have them working with our students.
Thank you. Are there comments or questions from the superintendent or board members? Other than congratulations and welcome to the LPS team. We have a motion for teachers for approval. Motion by Mrs. Bradford, supported by Mrs. Acosta. And Mrs. Bradford, would you please take the roll?
Mrs. Bradford says yes. Mrs. Acosta?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mrs. Bonnefield?
Yes.
Mrs. Jarvis?
Yes.
Mr. Centers?
Yes.
President Burton?
Yes, and that motion passes. The next item on our agenda is item 7B, teachers for tenure. May I have a motion, please?
President Burton.
Mr. Centers.
Move that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District accept the recommendation of the superintendent and acknowledge that tenure status has been granted to the following teachers effective on the respective dates: Angela Drolette, August 31st, 2022; Jennifer Harvey, November 2nd, 2022.
Support.
We have a motion by Mr. Centers, supported by Mr. Johnson. Mr. Johnson for teachers for tenure. We'll hear from Mrs. Keats on that item.
Hi, thank you.
Hello.
Our teachers for tenure on this agenda have successfully completed the district's requirements for probationary teachers, including years of service, evaluations, overall performance, and documentation of student growth. We have carefully reviewed all supporting materials along with the recommendation of our building administration and have verified that they should be granted tenure status with Livonia Public Schools. We wish to offer our congratulations for reaching this milestone and look forward to their continued success working in LPS.
Thank you. Are there any comments from the superintendent or board members?
Congratulations.
Absolutely. This is quite an accomplishment in their career. We have a motion then for teachers for tenure. Motion by Mr. Centers, supported by Mr. Johnson. Mrs. Bradford, would you please take the roll?
Mr. Centers?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mrs. Jarvis?
Yes.
Mrs. Bonnefield?
Yes.
Mrs. Bradford says yes. Mrs. Acosta?
Yes.
President Burton?
Yes, and that motion passes. The next item on our agenda is item 7C, leaves of absence. May I have a motion, please?
President Burton.
Mrs. Bonnefield.
Move that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District accept the recommendation of the superintendent and approve the requests for leave of absence as listed below. Chelsea Inglis, November 30, 2022. Lisa Kaiser, November 28, 2022. Jessica Candelaft, October 24, 2022.
Support.
We have a motion by Mrs. Bonnefield, supported by Mrs. Bradford. And we'll hear from Mr. Abate on this item.
Yes, so the leaves requested by the individuals listed have been made in accordance with their collective bargaining agreements, and we ask that you approve their leave time.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from the board or superintendent? Seeing none, we have a motion for leaves of absence. A motion by Mrs. Bonnefield, supported by Mrs. Bradford. Mrs. Bradford, would you please take the roll?
Mrs. Bonnefield.
Yes.
Mrs. Bradford says yes. Mr. Centers?
Yes.
Mrs. Jarvis?
Yes.
Mrs. Acosta?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
President Burton?
Yes, and that motion passes. The next item on our agenda is resignations. That does not require a board vote. That's informational only. And the next item on our agenda is item 7E, retirements. May I have a motion, please?
President Burton,
Mr. Johnson.
move that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District approve the attached resolutions of appreciation for services rendered by Michelle Ruska Muni and Frederick Strick.
Support.
We have a motion by Mr. Johnson, supported by Mrs. Jarvis. And we'll hear from Mrs. Gates.
Yes, thank you again. Tonight we honor 2 members of our LPS family who are retiring from their positions with Livonia Public Schools. We are grateful for the many dedicated years of service they provided to the students of LPS, which is a combined total of 60 years between them. We certainly wish them all the best for the future, and we ask the board please adopt the attached resolution of appreciation.
Thank you. Are there comments or questions from the superintendent or board members?
Yes, congratulations.
This is always a very bittersweet motion that we have before us. Many times we have said, if we vote no, can you stay? And it never seems to work that way. We do thank very much both of the individuals on this document and wish you a wonderful retirement and exciting next chapter of your lives. We have Mrs. Bradford, will you please take the roll for the motion for retirements? Motion by Mr. Johnson, supported by Mrs. Jarvis.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mrs. Jarvis?
Yes.
Mrs. Acosta?
Yes.
Mr. Centers?
Yes.
Mrs. Bradford says yes. Mrs. Bonnefield?
Yes.
President Burton?
Yes, and that motion passes. The next item on our agenda is item F, sympathy resolution. May I have a motion, please?
President Burton.
Mrs. Acosta.
Move that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District adopt the attached sympathy resolution for the family of Kathleen Grant, paraprofessional in the Transportation Department.
Support.
We have a motion by Mrs. Acosta, supported by Mr. Johnson. Mr. Abate. Mrs. Keats.
Yes, thank you. Tonight we honor Kathy Grant, who was an LPS transportation paraprofessional with us. While she was only with us for a few short years, she certainly made a very large impact with the students with whom she worked. When we asked her colleagues, they said she was just such a kind, loving individual who adored her family. She adored her job with the district and the kids who she was so fortunate to work with every single day. She was loved by the department, and she will be greatly missed.
Thank you. Any other comments from board members or the superintendent?
So we certainly, anytime we lose one of our colleagues, especially, it's hard to lose a colleague after they've retired and enjoyed many years after their career here. But when we lose them when they're with us, that's especially an especially difficult time, especially for their colleagues, the students with whom they worked. And I know just recently the Transportation Department gathered together and really rallied around Kathy with some special efforts to bring her some comfort and joy. And she certainly fought a short but courageous battle. And we are so very sorry for her family. And we will share this sympathy resolution on behalf of the Board of Education with them.
Thank you. And Mrs. Acosta, would you please read the resolution for us?
Livonia Public Schools Board of Education meeting, November 28, 2022. Sympathy resolution, Kathleen Grant. Whereas the Board of Education was deeply saddened to hear of the untimely death of Kathleen Grant, and whereas Kathy was a valued, caring, and highly respected staff member in the Livonia Public Schools School District, a paraprofessional in the Transportation Department, and whereas she consistently demonstrated her outstanding dedication, care, and commitment to students, parents, and colleagues, and will be greatly missed by all. And whereas Kathy Grant will always be remembered with great fondness and with a profound sense of gratitude for the immeasurable contribution she made to our school district, to the students she served, and to the colleagues with whom she worked. And now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District offers its deepest sympathy to the family, friends, and colleagues of Kathy Grant.
Thank you. Are there any other comments from board members? Seeing none, we have a motion for sympathy resolution. Motion by Mr. Johnson, I'm sorry, motion by Mrs. Acosta, supported by Mr. Johnson. Mrs. Bradford, would you please take the roll?
Mrs. Acosta.
Yes.
Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
Mrs. Bradford says yes. Mrs. Bonifield.
Yes.
Mr. Centers.
Yes.
Mrs. Jarvis.
Yes.
President Burton.
Yes, and that motion passes. We recently learned over the Thanksgiving holiday of 4 additional former staff members of Livonia Public Schools who have passed that are well-known in the community, and would like to just take a moment of silence on their behalf. We have learned of the passing of Pat Mack, of Dr. Jerry Smith, going back to the Bentley era, of Doug Curry from Churchill, and of Dan Freeman. Our condolences go to the families of all 4 of these individuals. They were all very instrumental, very loved, and each holds a legacy unique to themselves in our school district. We would take a moment of silence at this time. Thank you, and I wish to encourage you to keep their families in your prayers at this time. The next item on our agenda is item 8, hearing from board members. Are there any board members who have anything that they would like to share this evening? Mr. Centers.
I would just like to congratulate Mrs. Jarvis, Mrs. Burden, and Mr. Johnson, who were reelected for 4-year terms for the Board of Education. Clearly, excellent board members, and it was great to see the public recognize that. So congratulations to you all.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Mr. Johnson or Mrs. Jarvis, would you like to say anything?
Thank you.
Yes. Go ahead, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, President Burton. It's really humbling to have the community have enough confidence in the 3 of us to continue on this board. I think this is an outstanding board. I love working on it, and I'm going to work hard to earn that trust and confidence in the future. So thank you very, very much for all those who came out and voted. And on we go. Thank you.
I echo Mr. Johnson's comments. It is an honor to serve on this board. It's an honor to be reelected by our community in order to serve. It's been a personal and professional joy of my life to be involved in this organization of this caliber of individuals, of teammates at Livonia Public Schools. Thank you very much. Are there, Mrs. Jarvis?
I just wanted to say that saying thank you seems so simple. It's words, but from the bottom of our hearts, we do appreciate the support of our community, of our district, of our board members, of everyone who is touched by the work that we do here. We appreciate your confidence, and we will continue to work hard and earn that.
Thank you. Are there any comments from any other board members or things that other board members wish to share this evening? Mrs. Jarvis.
I just wanted to touch back to a comment that was made earlier during the superintendent's remarks about our wonderful Frost Robo Falcons who went to battle and were victorious. I just wanted to mention that they 2 weeks later they did it again, and they're double trouble this year. They just have one fantastic robot that was victorious twice.
Terrific.
So watch out for those guys.
Congratulations to them. Any other comments from board members at this time? Well, we have reached the end of our agenda. Thank you for hanging in there with us for one of our lengthier meetings. Again, congratulations to all of our educators and support staff of the year. And thank you to all of the 2,000 staff members who work every day to bring high-quality public education to all the kiddos in Livonia. We wish you all a nice evening. We are now adjourned.